about places in Canada that are awesome right now. And I'm just talking about like he's talking about he's been to Banff and Iowa. How I lived in Canmore. So what I would do on my Facebook page, right, is I would take pretty pictures of what I'd wake up to every morning, and then I would like post them, and I would get so many jealously like all people from like out like that actually lived in the province, right? To go, wow, that's pretty. It's like, yeah, I don't want to leave, and I didn't want to leave. I still don't want to leave, but it's pretty out there. It really
We had a pretty lucky experience because there was a big fire. This was I want to say this was around 2017, 2018. I don't know how often you guys have forest fires up there, but there was a bad one, and the winds changed right before we came in, so it blew the opposite direction, and we actually had a nice time.
Nice. No, we Canmore, Banff area, not often. Not often. It's not impossible, but it's not often. We had fires in Jasper, which isn't too far away from that place though this year. So it does. I would say uncommon would be the word I would use. It happens, but it's not an everyday occurrence, if that makes sense. Yeah,
but no, it was beautiful. And I'm gonna get the name of the lake wrong. What's the one up past Banff that has all the great hiking? It's an emerald lake, and maybe it even has that in the name.
Okay. In all fairness, there's lots of pretty places up there that are great for hiking. But I think you're thinking about Lake Louise.
Yes,
go up that.
That's
yes. Yeah, no, Lake Louise is like right at the border, the Alberta BC border. Like you're literally about 20 minutes away from British Columbia, right? Probably the scariest highway in all of Canada is that little bit of stretch that goes up into the mountains, right? Because there's a spot there in the wintertime. There's no safety up there at all. So it's like it's probably not a good idea to drive it in the winter, but it's still one of the prettiest. Like it's one of the prettiest places you'll ever see and ever go through. But anyway, how are you today, man?
Oh, I'm great. I was just gonna say my favorite meme about Canada is the one that Canada has 2 seasons: winter and highway construction.
That is Western Canada for sure.
Yep.
Northern Canada for sure. When you get to, whoa, geez, here we go. Hold on a sec here. My computer is.
Technical difficulties.
Always. It seems to me. Well, here's the thing. I know my computer is gradually dying. It's been dying little bit, inches by inches, and I need to replace the damn thing. And I'm well aware of this. Come on, you, so I can hit the button. But no, so I know it needs to happen. I'm hoping to make it to the end of the year, because at the end of the year I can get myself a nicer system. If it dies before then, it'll be like, okay.
Have to put all my fun stuff on hold.
All of it.
Yes.
And even some of the not so fun stuff on hold, right? Because it's just like, oh, because this is what I do, right? So, but no, it's just like I said, it's an old system. I know it. It's done me well. I mean, I've done a few hundred streams with it. I mean, that might be part of the reason why the doppelganger thing happened. It's entirely a possibility.
There's a ghost of you in the system.
Yes.
It's becoming sentient.
See, actually, I had this thought of doing like a short story based on that experience, like interviewing someone like you. And then all of a sudden, just every so often, just something would just come, take me out of the equation. Right? So it's almost like 2 stories, but it might be a little too axe. It might be a little too axe copy.
I'm trying to think. I'm not familiar with that. You mean a movie, Axe? Or?
No, it's a comic.
Okay.
World-class illustrator. Narration is literally his 10-year-old brother. It's fantastic. It is exactly what you imagine it to be, and that's why it's so damn good.
I'm thinking my favorite comic strip going way back. I don't know. You guys probably had Bill Watterson in Canada as well, but Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah.
Oh no, Calvin and Hobbes is the shit, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
not quite comic book. That's more funny paper.
there isn't really there isn't really a huge
What?
there isn't a huge difference really. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's the length of the medium, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have a newspaper strip, so you have 4 or 5 panels to tell your joke.
Yep.
Right. Whereas a comic book, you have 22 pages. Just imagine like 22-page story, and it's completely told by a 10-year-old. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like it goes off in one direction and then suddenly just changes gears like that, and he just goes with it. That's why it works. It's just like when you try to pretend you're something you're not, right? That's when things work out really well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my opinion anyway. There we go.
Absolutely. Everything
There
fixed?
Yeah, I can see you again. I had a blue screen. I had a blue screen, Control Alt Delete kind of thing going on there.
How many fingers am I holding up?
There are no fingers. There are no fingers. There are no spoons. But, dude, you've done a good thing. I was recommended you earlier this year. I put this as a contest. It's like I go to an author, hey, pitch me a book. Here's the catch: it can't be yours.
Mm-hmm.
Then somebody, I can't remember who, I think it was Allegra, it might have been somebody else, recommended your book.
Okay, probably Allegra.
Yeah. And I read it, and it's like, this dude is an old school like fantasy fan, and he likes steampunk.
Yep.
Because right, and it's like, this is fun.
And I'm also, so the other place you might have seen it is like old school Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Like the original ones, like 1 through 6, especially 6. That's where I'm drawing a lot of the inspiration for these kind of things, and the adventure and the crew that comes together, and you have a wider party, that kind of stuff.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6 is my favorite Final Fantasy game.
That's my favorite Final Fantasy game too. Yeah.
Yeah, the bad guy wins. That's the thing.
Yes.
It's the bad guy wins. Halfway through the game, he wins.
Yep, and they have to extend the story so the heroes can come back.
Kinda. I think it was such an interesting, unexpected twist. You always expect that the bad guy ultimately gets his comeuppance, and he kind of does, kind of, sort of, ish. But he was just this, he was a monster, and I think it's much more interesting when it's like, okay, you failed, and now what do you do?
And so, again, speaking about my work, so you like villains. I started with Sarkon from Divinity's Twilight. He was the first thing to exist in the universe. I created the heroes to be people to oppose him because he was the original idea.
Yes. Oh, hello, Britain. Hey, Britain. This is Chris.
Howdy.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Britain.
Yeah. No, so it's one of those things where it's interesting. It's like how we construct with stories. For me, it's the opposite. Sometimes one of my stories, my main character is a cowardly dude, right? And it's like, oh, so what kind of world can I build around him? Like kind of like a la Roger Zelazny. But sometimes it's like, hey, I got this really cool, kick-ass world. He's asking how it's going.
It's going really well. Just had a release of the second book of my Divinity's Twilight series, Divinity's Twilight Remnant. And so that launch took me until like 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning, and then woke up and went to work, and now I'm back at marketing again tonight. So probably no sleep for a couple of days, but we're just running on pure adrenaline.
It's also kind of cool when your book's out.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a high, like, especially a book as complex as yours, because that's not easy to put together, right? It's just not. And I don't know how many books you got planned in this series. I haven't read the second book yet, so I don't know if you're going to do 3.
So, no, the plan is 6 books in the main series, do a time skip, next generation or whatever, 3-book capstone or something like that.
Okay, so this is. So, is it fair if I say this is your magician world? Like
my magician's world, it's supposed to be the through line. So, have you ever read anything by Brandon Sanderson?
Yes.
Okay, so this is supposed to be, I'm constructing a combined universe called the Constella. And so Divinity's Twilight is the main through line. It is the Stormlight Archive. of the universe. And so that's probably why a lot of people compare it to Stormlight Archive. Like one of the taglines people say is like Stormlight Archive with airships.
Yes. Well, Stormlight Archive with airships, right? And like I said, when I first started, it's like, this got like steampunk, because we're talking about Final Fantasy VI. The Final Fantasy 6 and 7 both are very heavy steampunk games.
Yes.
Right.
So I would say, as far as the tech level, if we're going to keep using Final Fantasy as a comparison, it's kind of like Final Fantasy 12. If you ever played that one.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Although that one is, I have a love-hate relationship with that game. That one has an incredible world.
Yes.
But it has an incredible world. But you don't.
It didn't utilize it. The side quests and everything you can go and do is amazing. The main story it's good, but it could have been better.
Well, the main story was part of the problem. The other part of the problem was I think the gambit system was too automated. So if there are points
you're talking,
yeah. So it goes both ways. I think the story. I think once I'm gonna spoil. I can't remember the little brother of the boss in that game. Once he leaves your party for good, the story loses cohesion. Like it just loses a lot of cohesion, and
because I'm trying to think. So yeah, that was Larsa. I recently replayed probably 2 or 3 years ago the Zodiac Age, which was their remaster, and they redid the job system for it, which is amazing. It is way better than the original version.
Oh, good, thank goodness.
Yes.
No, I want it. Because I love the side quests of the game. I love the Esper battles in that game. The Esper battles are super fun. Even that really evil one in the hardest cave in the game, that one was actually ridiculously kind of fun. But yeah, like the game had its flaws, and it was story-wise, it was incomplete. But the game, so is Zodiac Age better? Is it a better game playing experience?
It is the same. Yes, it's a better gameplay experience. Fixes some of the stuff with gambits, and then you remember how you got abilities. It was the giant blocky chart. Yeah. And it still has the giant blocky chart, but the way that they've done it is that you now have like a Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy V style job system. And you can hold multiple jobs and you can switch back and forth. And there are specific, instead of everything being on one chart, every single job's chart is unique and where you'll be able to go and get stuff on them.
So in other words, they kind of also stole a little bit from 10 there too, because 12 was supposed to be an evolved version of the grid system. Now 10 had its problems, like i.e. Blitzball. Ew. But
you could sink weeks into Blitzball.
I hated it so much.
I enjoyed the management aspect because I never wanted to do like Madden or any of those because that was too sports for me. But Blitzball was like just the right happy medium.
No, it's simplistic, but I just thought for everything you had to do to get everything out of that, it's just like it was too much. I think my favorite like side game within game Final Fantasy's ever done is 8's card game.
Oh yes, Triple Triad, right?
Yeah,
Triple Triad 9? No, Triple Triad's 8. Because they reused it for 14, the online one, right?
Okay, yeah, it's 8 because it was like it was perfect. It was the right amount of there's some cool like deep stuff you can do, but it didn't feel it was absolutely necessary to do everything. And you got out of it what you put into it, which I think is exactly what you want in a side quest. So,
sort of like Gwent, if you've ever done The Witcher.
Yeah, no, Gwent. It's actually I'm a card game guy, obviously, right? I'm enjoying Shadowverse, and I play Commander and Magic, and I occasionally dabble with Hearthstone. So it's like I would have to give rid of my Hearthstone dabbling, and I think if I wanted to do Gwent, but Gwent does look entertaining.
In the game, I thought it was more fun than the like actual combat in game itself. That it was really robust for a side game in a game.
Yes. Oh no, it really is. Like that's why I haven't jumped into the card game because it's really good. But I too write books, Chris. So I have to figure out what that happy balance. Yeah. Right. I give myself some video game binge time, but not so much. And when I'm really busy, it's kind of like, it goes by the wayside, right? remember back in the day when you could beat a game, you'd have a weeks to yourself to beat a game, and now it takes you
Oh
like
yeah.
months or years.
Or
to beat
like
that same.
in college when you didn't need sleep.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I can beat this game. Now
Mhm.
you're like, I can beat this game, but I don't get paid if I beat this game. Yeah.
Yep. It's going to get in
Yeah.
the way of something else.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But if I were to do another card game, it would be Gwent. Gwent looks really good. So, fair point to you. I didn't. Well, I guess I'm not entirely surprised that you are big into games. Like,
Yes.
it makes a lot of sense. So, was Final Fantasy your favorite series?
Final Fantasy is my favorite series. I'm very much an RPG guy. That I enjoy challenge and I enjoy story at the same time. Those two I probably want balance, but if I had to pick one, it would be story. I'm a big fan of the Dark Souls games, so Soulsborne. What else? The Tales games. So it's
I
another
love the Tales
JRPG. The
games.
Tales game.
I think the Tales games are that perfect balance of
Yes.
combat and story, and I love the skits.
The skits are amazing, and again, talking on a writing podcast, talking from a writing perspective, they're a very good example of how to give your characters mundane things about them that really flesh them out. So the camping skits, the people that are good at cooking, the people that are good at cleaning, the ones that want to go fishing, the ones that are doing weight training or whatever around the fire. So the camping really brings your party together and allows you to flesh out those things.
I love the ones that you find by accident too, because sometimes they put little Easter eggs ones in there.
Uh-huh.
So my favorite skit game of all the skit ones was Tales of Graces. So
I haven't
there's
played Tales of Graces.
Okay.
Oh, you can spoil it. You're fine.
Yeah. Well, you go the wrong way, and one of like you're in the snowy mountain, and you have the choice of going fork in the road. If you pick the wrong fork, right, the character he's like the perfect straight man for everything. He's like, he suddenly comes out. It's like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't the way you're supposed to. Like it comes out in like a hilarious way, and it's just like, I love this game. I screwed up, but I don't care. I love this game. So now, sometimes like when I play the Tales games, I will screw up on purpose because sometimes you get a really cool skit out of it. So,
what's your favorite?
Zelia.
Zelia?
Zelia.
Okay, so Zelia 1 or 2?
2 actually made me cry at the end of the game.
Okay, because I'm halfway through Zelia because I did. I'm trying to think. I've done every single Tales game couch co-op with a college buddy, except for Arise, the newest one, because that was single player.
Yeah. I haven't done Arise yet.
So we started with Zestiria, because that was what was out at the time. We did Zestiria, Berseria, went back to Symphonia, and then we were playing Zelia, and we haven't been able to get back to it because we're in different places now. But
Zelia is my favorite of all of them. It deals with some incredible real life issues. Which way did you go? Did you go with
who was main character? I think we started Jude. We were going to do both.
Jude's
and we started
busted. Jude is incredibly busted. That back pivot thing he does is ridiculous.
Because I was playing. The way we did it is that I always played melee and tanks, and then my friend would play casters. So I was playing Jude, and we were up to the Colosseum city, the one that was built in the gorge. I'm trying to remember from like 5 years ago.
It's great. That game's amazing. Really cool bonus dungeon, really cool bonus Colosseums. I also love the relationship between Jude and Maxwell. Amelia is there.
Mila, I think it is.
Yeah, that gets really good. The second game, it's actually better in some ways.
Right, and I've heard from my friend that follows a different cast, and they're trying to find Jude.
Well, no, it's a different main character. It's different main two characters.
Oh, right, and then it's the rest of the characters come in and do like cameos, right?
Well, no, they're playable characters in the game.
Okay,
but they're not the main characters in the game anymore. It's your character, and that game made me cry twice. That game actually made me cry twice. No, I'm not going to spoil it. Like the true ending of the game, like the ultimate ending you can choose, is one of the most bittersweet. Like it's awesome, but you will be crying because it's an amazing.
I'm getting chills from that because I just really enjoy things like that in games. I'll have to pull out my old PS3 and boot that back up.
Yeah. No, okay. So there's that, but there's another scene too. There's like the mid is like not the last boss of the game. I'm not going to spoil it too much. It hits you right in the gut because it's the right thing to do. But it's so touching. I think it perfectly evolved. It's the only time you hear your main character speak.
Really?
In the game. Yeah.
This is in Xillia 2.
Xillia 2 is the only time he speaks, and you hear it here.
Okay. And so Xillia 2 wasn't fully voice acted?
Oh, it's voice acted by everybody but the main character.
But the main character. Okay. Is there some sort of amnesia thing going on? Or?
No.
Interesting choice.
It's actually.
So it is a narrative choice, and it plays into the twist. Okay.
Big time. No, it's one of the few times I enjoyed the sequel more than I enjoyed the first game.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I don't always say I don't always say that. You always get that. It's not just it does have a bit of the sequels the reason it kind of happens is kind of like silly, although it creates some really interesting narrative choices, right? From character arcs. Like Mila has a very interesting quandary in that game, right? There's a very interesting choice there, and when you get it, you're like, "Oh, that's interesting," right? And Jude's snap pivot's not as busted in that game. They balanced it. No, that snap pivot. If you master that,
okay. I know what you're talking about. It's the dodge that puts you.
Yeah. His dodge is really
because I played the boss that you're allowed to lose to at the very beginning. I kept doing that over until I beat her using the snap pivot.
It is legitimately.
So I made sure I practiced the snap pivot at the very beginning.
No, like for those people listening here, Tales of Xillia, Jude's snap pivot was a little too good. Now, there are some battles later in the game where you need it, but by and large, it is the most busted thing I've ever seen in any of the Tales games, and I've played a lot of them.
Have you played Tales of Arise, the newest one?
I haven't played Arise yet.
Because I think Arise has the best combat out of any of them. Story, haven't played all of them, so I can't really rank them. But I'd say that it is a good Tales story. It may not be the best, but the combat is impeccable.
Xillia so far is the best story of all of them I've played. So. Now, I'm at Berseria. I haven't gotten deep into Berseria yet, so I can't say for sure that it's better than Berseria. It's better than Zestria. It's better than Graces, right?
Berseria had a very good story.
No, yeah, So I so far it feels like it's going to be a very good story. I haven't played deep enough into the game yet to say that it is. Zestria, there's some missteps in that story, but still overall. It is a very fun game. It's just there are some serious missteps there. Grace is same thing. There are some missteps there, but also but there's some really cool moments, and I love the other cool thing about the skits of the Tales games. You can actually see the characters grow closer together too. You can see it, like depending upon the skits you get, how you get them. And when you get them and how many battles you have, you can actually start seeing that there's some legitimate bonds, and it adds to the story when things happen, which is the other reason. It's the closest thing to a fighting game I've ever seen in an RPG. Some of the depending on some of the characters you use, it almost feels like an old school fighting game. And it's like, so for me, it's like the best of all worlds. So I used to be really good at fighting games once upon a time.
It's a really good combat system. I'd say that it's similar to what Final Fantasy tried to do with Final Fantasy 15, but Tales does it better.
I haven't played 15. So the last Final Fantasy game I played was 13.
15, so 13, you're still bound by the the paradigm shift or whatever?
The paradigm shift's a big part.
Yes, and then you're doing input still. Final Fantasy 15, it's full on action that you're able to move in 3 dimensions, move your character around. You're able to cast abilities on a timer. You have the basic attacks and things like you had from Tales. All the different dodges and stuff that you can execute like a Tales game.
That's cool. No, it's cool. No, I like Tales is like my the other series I like is Persona. I love the Persona
I haven't
games.
played those. Again, that's on the list for time when I have time.
So I'll give it to you like this.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in it for the story, 3. It's 3, 5, then 4.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in it for the game, 5 by far is the best game.
Yeah.
But I would start with 4. If I were to do it in terms of that, 3 is the hard mode of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it. I'm pretty sure if you're a good enough gamer, you'll be like, but just if you ever play in the old Atlas games, they said players' tears are our fuel. You will cry in a few of those spots along the way.
Have you played Souls games? Because that's like baseline for hard.
Yeah. I've played them. I don't play them online. I learned that one. The hard way.
I'm only talking about the PvE. That's like all I consider Souls.
No. You can actually play those PvE games online. You can get like people's input. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. Mm-hmm. Man, do people lie to you sometimes just to see you, right? It's like, do this or do this or do this.
Oh, you're talking about the messages on the ground.
Yeah. Oh, I don't do that because it's just like,
let's see what else. Have you played any of the Nier games, the 2 Nier games?
Haven't played the Nier ones.
Okay, so those are storytelling masterpieces as well. And in terms of both the narrative storytelling and the atmospheric storytelling, everything that you're doing. Like Nier Automata is about as perfect of a game as I think you can make.
That sounds cool. I mean,
it is art.
I'll have to take a look at some again when we have time. Like,
yes.
Obviously,
we're just pitching things back at each other.
Yeah, exactly. I'll give you one more rec, and then we'll talk somewhat books. Have you ever played the Ni no Kuni games?
I've heard of them. Yes. Mm-hmm.
The first one's really good. Studio Ghibli. It's one part. It's an RPG, but it's also one part Monster Hunter too. It's surprisingly fun. Like, it's a very fun game. It will suck your soul because of all just of all the time you'll take them through it. But that game is one of the few ones like it's worth it. It's worth the exploration, right? Mm-hmm. So, but the thing again, all of which to say is there are a lot of cool video games out there, and I think for my money today. Probably the great frontier in storytelling actually is video games.
Mm-hmm. Now, because it's the synthesis of what the original creators intended and what they put into it and what is experienced by the user, and they're able to directly interact with it. With a book, it's all in your mind, your thoughts, your imagination. You're able to see and interpret things differently from the author. But with a game, there's interplay, there's back and forth.
Yeah, the interactions is the language of games. And as such, it's something a book cannot do. That is just something, but you can still do some really cool stuff with books. Don't get me wrong. But it's like,
I'm still waiting for my Mistborn game.
But which one?
Mistborn, Brandon Sanderson. Yes, I think that would be a great game.
The first 3 books for sure. I think you'd have to divide the first 3 books from the rest of the Mistborn series.
Yeah.
Right, but you could definitely do it. Vin's
because you break power balance when you introduce guns.
Yes, just a little bit, just a touch. Yeah, you have to cap it at each arc of the story.
Yep.
So, what's your favorite Sanderson series?
I think that Mistborn is the first book, The Final Empire, is the best single entry book that he's done, and maybe best single entry book in fantasy. With the twists that are in it, the character development, the way that everything's tied up neatly and that you can have a sequel or not have a sequel. I think that up to this point, the one I've enjoyed the most is, of course, Stormlight Archive. And I'm the crazy type of person because I love grand interconnected universes and going, oh, well, this little Easter egg means this because of this novel and over here. I think that the Stormlight Archive is getting better with each book that he writes, as opposed to a lot of people that think it's getting worse.
I'm in the second book of Stormlight, so don't spoil it for me.
Yes.
I'm in this unique position. I have a lot of great books from a lot of great friends to read. Like Like, for example, you'll recognize this person, I'm sure.
I do. Eye of the
Yeah,
Storm.
very good book.
Are you reading that before Whispers of Stone? I think
I am.
Whispers. Okay, because that's what's Allegra recommended.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, no, I the Storm and Allegra's co-writing cult, as I call it, because she seems to have a lot of people
Yep.
she co-writes with. But
She and I are working on. We actually have 2 or 3 books that we're partway in, just because of how busy each of us are with different projects. The first one was a satirical fantasy that follows a character called Luca Fieldtreader, so play on Luke Skywalker, and he finds out that he's the chosen one, and his power is that he's able to go back in time. But when he goes back in time, he creates a copy of himself, and the copy continues to do what he did in the previous iteration. So every time he goes back, he creates copies that are going to keep playing out however he did things in the last loop. And so eventually he has hundreds or thousands of Lucas running around that he has to corral and manage in order to save the world, because he keeps getting in his own way.
imagine one of them just eventually says, like, "Where are the problems?" Someone comes to the same conclusion, starts trying to kill every other one of them.
That may happen.
Yeah. So that reminds me of a comic book I read called Lobo. So in this one story, he's got a time traveling Billy the Kid like guy. So he's able. We'll get to that in just a second, Mr. Britton. But I'm just gonna finish my story and then we'll get to that question. So Lobo lures 20 of them into the same place at the same time and kills all 20 at once. Then he takes them to different bounties, these different bounty companies, one body per, because the way he looked at it is like, it's still the same. It's different eras, different time, but same guy, same bay. I thought it was one of the cleverest like time travel things I've ever seen. It's like, hey, get the bounty up and kill a whole bunch of them at once, and it's just like problem solved, and I get like 20 times the pay, right? So it's great. All right. So let's see.
Britain, steampunk, right? Probably Shadows of the Aft. It's a series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. He is a Tor Midlister. He works as a professor in Britain, but he's also written, you probably know him better for Children of Time. I want to say that that's his most recent series. The one that has, it's sci-fi and it has spiders as the focal civilization. But anyway, Shadows of the Apt is his steampunk fantasy, and he does a great job of demonstrating how new technologies introduced to a world are going to affect politics, culture, warfare, a bunch of different things. Yes, you've heard of him. But it's a 10-book series, starts with Empire in Black and Gold. And there's very low magic, very much combination of tech and different things like that. And he does a cool... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, he does a lot of different levels of tech.
Yeah.
Great characterizations. All the characters are really interesting.
So you've read it.
I've read the first couple.
Okay.
I didn't read all of them, but I read the first couple. They're good.
I was going to talk about the background that are of insect ancestors. And so, for example, the wasps, they're human beings, but they're able to shoot stings out of their hand, like little bolts of energy. Then there's the mantis kindin. They're really good with dual blades, like having the hooked claws of a mantis. And then there's a bunch of the ants are sturdy and hardy and are able to link telepathically with each other. The beetles are very industrious and great inventors. So every single race, insect kindin, has their special power, so to speak, their magic.
Yeah. Other people I recommend in the steampunk rail, Jay Kristoff's first series was really, really good.
Lotus War, yeah.
Yeah, the Lotus War was fantastic. It's an environmental steampunk story. It's really, really
technically,
fun.
The Nevernight Chronicles is steampunk. He lists it as steampunk, even though there's not a lot of steampunk in the execution.
I haven't read the Never. So the pandemic kind of messed up my like. There are certain authors I'm trying to catch up with right now. He's one of them. So I got a whole bunch of his stuff still in my storage locker. I got to see what I have. But I think I got to Aurora Rising from him right before he released his Nevernight series. Now he's got a new vampire one now that looks really sweet.
Empire the Vampire is brilliant.
Yeah, that looks fantastic.
So when you read Remnant, the author, in between me writing book 1 and me writing book 2, the author that I was most influenced by was Jay Kristoff.
Yes.
The way that he writes, the way he engages all five senses, the almost poetic nature to his use of figurative language, everything like that. He's the author whose prose I want to emulate the most.
No, he's good. Like he's a great choice. Like I'm at this point, I don't read a ton of traditional guides at this point, but like the ones I do read, like he's on my list. So for those listening, Brandon Sanderson, Marissa Mayer, Jay Kristoff, you seem to approve all my choices so far. I like that. Fonda Lee, also really cool take on fantasy. I love her Gangs of New York style fantasy in it with hers. And not too much else right now because again, lots of great indie authors out there, and I feel like the ones I mentioned aside, there isn't they are expanding and definitely experimenting more. But if I definitely want to see where the cutting edge is, I'm going to go indie still. Like indie is still where people are playing with stuff the most.
What is it? The Hero series, Hero the Ninth, or whatever those. That's pretty interesting. The lesbian necromancers in space. Have you heard that pitch? That tagline?
That's interesting. I haven't read that one. No.
So that is, I'm trying to think of the author, but there's 3 books in the series, and I know that there's a 4th one coming out. What else is new and interesting? I know R.F. Kuang is tossed around a lot with Babel. Babel recently came out.
I saw that one, and I'm 50-50 on that one. It sounds interesting.
Yes, and then I know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I
was just going to say I met Ronnie Verdi at a few conventions, and so he was recently acquired by Tor, and his book is I want to say the first binding. It's like they're touting it as like Patrick Rothfuss style, but it's it is Silk Road fantasy, is what they call it.
No, like I said, for me. Like I guess maybe it's also where our goals are. I'm looking going back to like the old school dime pulpy novels, and where I find that is Japanese light novels. They tie very much into the like pulpy dime novel style. I like big books, but I like the big epic fantasies. But here's what, again, this goes back to a time thing. I can do 3 books a year. Like 3, I have 3 of them I can do in a year. And I feel good about it. So let's say you're one of them. Let's say Brandon Sanderson, whenever he comes out with a new book, and then Mayer's not there. She's closer to like a smaller one. But say Kristoff, right? China Miéville is an interesting choice on that. He is kind of steampunk. He's definitely, I think, along the Silk Road line of things for sure. Right? So, but it depends. Like I've read a little bit of him. I like his kid stuff better than I like his adult stuff. But maybe I can say that. Maybe that's because I'm secretly 12. That's entirely a possibility.
We're all secretly 12.
Yeah. I mean, we spent the first 30 minutes talking video games. So
we all want to be back in our parents' basement playing Halo for the first time.
Or Duke Nukem, in my case. I'm that old. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. I can live with that.
What my first video game that I owned was Rogue Squadron for the Nintendo 64.
That's a fun one, actually.
Yes.
That's a fun one. Mine was Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Or Mike Tyson's Punch Out Nintendo. It's one of the two. Those are like the early stuff that definitely has an impact. Like, and then I got Final Fantasy VI. Where do you stand on Chrono Trigger? Yay or nay?
I have not played Chrono Trigger.
Really?
It's a gap. Yep.
Wow. It's that one is a worthwhile. We're throwing video games. We don't have time to play at each other, but that one's a shorter one at least. Right? It's fun. If you like 6, you'll love Chrono Trigger. So. Also very very steampunky / well, it's everything because that's the cool thing about Chrono Trigger. It's every era. So, but no, like I think it's a reflection of what we're doing. We're kind of like looking around what everybody else is doing, and like I say, it's interesting. If I want to read good YA, I can still go to a bookstore traditionally and get great YA and see some really cool stuff in indie. It's about 50-50 split there. Epic fantasy, I got to go indie more, but obviously, but the big notable exceptions, right? And science fiction is pretty much all indie at this point, or very, very little traditional. I don't know about you, where you're
I
at.
don't read much science fiction anymore. I'm trying to think of the last one I read.
That's kind of
I was big into Star Wars. Actually, at AwesomeCon DC, I was there at the beginning of June, and I was selling books back to back with why can't I remember his name anymore? Oh wow, this is what several nights of 4 hours of sleep are going to do to you. Timothy Zahn, creator of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Oh,
Yes.
Zahn is he
Yes.
is severely underrated.
Yes, I love
Severely.
Zahn.
Yeah.
Thrawn is my favorite character, so of course I got signed books from him, talked to him for like an hour about Thrawn and fantasy and science fiction, everything. And his thoughts on where Disney is going, because apparently he's been in a few conversations. But we might need a whole nother podcast to talk about all
That,
that.
also, it's a little weird, awkward talking about big companies when the people talking with them aren't there. Those are not conversations you want on there, because, I mean, I have some old Warner Brothers Superman movie stories, but I still don't know if I want to actually put them on the air, because you never know. They have bigger wallets than I do, so
yes, I'm gonna be very careful.
Yeah, so it's like no. Zahn is awesome.
Yeah, he's a really cool dude. Got a few signed books. I'm definitely going to keep most of them.
Yeah, no, like he's definitely he's one of those guys. Another guy I find in kind of that realm of not talked about enough that does really good stuff in science fiction is Peter David. Does really cool books. Nobody really notices them, or very few people notice them, and it's just like, you're really good. But I think science fiction always has a couple of those authors under the radar at all times. But I also just think with the way things have gone, like, I think maybe this goes back to the video game in one sense. I think fantasy books fit games a lot more. It's the only thing I can really think of. Because I go to a bookseller and I'll see 3 or 4 rows of fantasy books. I'll see 1 or 2 of science fiction. That's it. Right. So
the thing about science fiction is, and this is actually a little bit of a Worldcon experience. So do you know John Kong?
I don't know him.
He wrote the Legends of Tavara, or the Tales of the Floating World. If you've come across those.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
So he and I do a ton of events together because we both live in Virginia, Central Virginia, in the U.S. And so we went up to Worldcon in DC last year. This was December last year, and we ran into a lot of people that were very much hard sci-fi people. And so I would tell them, like, mine is futuristic fantasy or steampunk. It's a blend between fantasy and sci-fi, and they'd turn up their noses at it. They'd be like, not hard sci-fi. It's not what's the word? Heimlin. It's not Heimlin or something like that. And so that is what they consider sci-fi. They don't consider Star Wars or Star Trek or anything of a derivative nature to even be sci-fi.
That's okay. So one of my favorite authors of all time is Roger Zelazny. He is the perfect epitome of science fiction and fantasy merged together. Like the Amber series is literally that. Like,
I haven't read him. I've heard his name talked about a lot.
I think what would impress you the most is how dense his stuff is. He does 200 pages of work. Like his average novel is 200 pages. But he puts so much characterization in there and so much world. It's like you read either his Amber series or Lord of Light. Lord of Light's a little bigger than his Amber, but it's still the same concept. Not a huge book. Man, is that world breathtaking when you get into it. Another guy, he's almost like Jack Vance. I don't know if you read any Vance either. No. So
like my sci-fi, so fantasy, I'm very well read. Sci-fi, it's very shallow.
So for me, but the thing is that what appeals to me about like hard sci-fi by and large bores me. Right? By and large. There are exceptions. Vance is the man. Vance is the man. Like, period. There, right? Vance is the man. How do I put this? Isaac Asimov, Robert Sawyer are great hard science fiction authors. They do a very good job of summarizing what you need to know scientifically to tell their story. But most hard science fiction tends to just go so deep into the science concept that the story almost is secondary, which that's not what a lot of people. When I go to read a book, I'm going to read a good story. That's what I want.
Yes.
I love cool concepts. Don't get me wrong, but I don't. If you were to take 10 pages and explain why your airship worked, I'd hate you.
Yes.
Just a little bit. Now, if you took a page to explain why it worked, and then that counts later for something, thumbs up, cool, right? But I don't want those technical details just to drill. There are way better ways to present them. And it's funny that they mentioned Highland. Highland was great at that. Not like by most hard sci-fi definitions. Highland's actually kind of light. Like, he was for kids. He did it right. So I mean, like,
I haven't read him, so I can't say one way or another. But you were talking about digestibility of concepts and being able to blend things. That's why Brandon Sanderson's so popular, is his hard magic systems. That he has created something that you could write equations for that would be like math and made it digestible to everybody that reads fantasy.
Yeah, no, he's one of the best world builders ever. Like, it's not even like he thinks in terms of systems of magic, how worlds work around those magics, how it would possibly exist. That's why Mistborn's so good, right? Because it makes sense. And the twist that was in like the entire series, the whole twist of it, and it was right there all along. And you're like, okay, you're good. Like, you're really, really good. I'm not saying it because
no, he is not human.
That man, he's not the only one quite that prolific, but he's really good at what he does. So he's not the only one in that realm.
Well, I'd say it's not a matter of, it's how prolific he is on the time he has.
Yeah.
Because I follow him relatively closely, and I think he's down to 3 days writing a week, and he's still churning out books. I know indie authors, like, have you read anything by Andy Pelican?
I haven't read, but I have heard.
Darkblade Assassin, that series. But he, oh wow. He does like 200,000 word books in 2 months.
Yep.
It's insane. Yeah.
I know a romance author. She releases a book every 6 weeks.
Wow.
Like that's crazy.
Well, a romance book is what, like 80K maybe?
80. Well, it depends. Right? More cock here. Namir's quick, but he's not. His scripts are quick. His full graphics take some time, but yes, no, like they're always sitting there and they're telling stories, and no, like I think it gets to a certain point where you get to such a groove that it comes easy, and again, he's very efficient with his time. There's no doubt about it. He still somehow finds time to come on Twitch to play games. He still finds the time to teach. Like, he teaches. I don't know if he teaches full time anymore. I don't know.
No, he teaches one semester every year. So he does spring semesters. Yeah. 2 classes. So big lecture and then a small creative writing section.
Yeah. He's actually, I've been trying to get him to come on the show. Like I want to play Magic the Gathering against him live on the show.
That would be fun.
I'd love to do it. But like we'd come up with like, I've already got the pitch to him. We'll pick a fun set and we'll draft a sealed deck on the spot and we'll play it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's what I want to do with Brandon Sand, because I think it'd be a fun
makes me want to learn Magic. The only one I ever played was so I did Pokemon when I was young, and then when I was in college, I did like going to Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments and stuff.
So put this in perspective. Magic has. Have you ever played poker? Like, have you ever done poker? So Magic has similar math concepts that poker does, right? It's on that level. Maybe right. It's still a resource management game. You're using lands. It's lands and knowing when to act because you have a lot more
Mhm.
spaces to act, and the defensive player always has the advantage in Magic, right?
Mhm.
The offensive player, while can control things like tempo and be aggressive and stuff like that, you always have the ability when it's not your turn,
Mhm.
beyond on the defensive end, to respond to everything, right?
So you're making the comparison to poker. If I had to make a comparison, Yu-Gi-Oh was more like 21 because
Or
your goal was to know your deck and know your opponent's deck and know the chances of you getting the right card and them getting the card they need.
Yu-Gi-Oh
Yeah.
was how did the Yu-Gi-Oh bridge put it? A broken mess of a card game, because
Mhm.
the thing about Yu-Gi-Oh was cost was imbalanced, has always been imbalanced in that
Oh,
game.
you mean the cost of the cards? Yeah.
Yeah, the cost of the cards in terms of
Yeah.
not just the value to pay for these cards,
Mhm.
but also like when you're playing a game like Magic, everything has a cost. Gwent,
Mhm.
everything has a cost. Hearthstone, everything has a cost. There are Magic cards in Yu-Gi-Oh, you just play them,
Mhm.
right? There are trap cards, you just play them. There are monsters, you just play them,
Mhm.
right? And you trigger so many. Yu-Gi-Oh you can do some incredibly complex things in Yu-Gi-Oh,
Mhm.
but in terms of the where you can respond, how you can respond, what you can do, Yu-Gi-Oh's in general a lot simpler, and
Mhm.
except for on very very high levels, right? And that right. So Magic, you're always thinking moves. You're always thinking whether it's your turn, your opponent's turn. It's all about it's very much a control thing. But I love particularly draft formats because
Mhm.
you're not just playing with good cards, you're playing with bad cards
Yeah,
too.
that's the way that I would prefer to play a card
Yeah,
game. Yeah.
yeah. No, and so Seal's my favorite. Seal, you just open a bunch of packs yourself and
Mhm.
you choose. But draft's very fun because you draft, you open a pack, you pick one card, and then you pass it along to everybody else.
Oh, that is really fun.
Well,
Mhm.
no, it's a very fun format. Like it's
Mhm.
super fun. But again, because you end up with these cards, you're like, this sucks. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so much fun,
Yeah,
right?
I have to
Right?
figure out
And
how to use it.
yeah, exactly. No,
Mhm.
it's such a and people will play it and that's the other thing too. Anyone can play those formats, right? Because we all have bad decks, right? So
Mhm.
it doesn't really matter. So and someone can literally draft the nuts. I've seen it. Or someone just like, I'm the only one playing this color.
Mhm.
Oh man, if you get into one of those, you usually win. If you're that guy,
Mhm.
it's like, wait, I got all of the cards, right? So it's just like,
Mhm.
but no, but no, like I said, that's the thing. Like I would play that format with Brandon because with all due respect to Mr. Sanderson, he has maxes way more cards than I do at this point because of not only his fans, but because there's like he doesn't have money
Mhm.
issues anymore.
No.
Really, I mean, if there's anything he wants, he can get.
I don't
So
think that
I
he
can't
enjoys playing built anyway, from what I hear.
built built outside of
What is
Commander.
Cube? The one that he always talks about is Cube.
Oh, so basically, it's another draft format, but
Mhm.
your cube is say a cube is 250 cards. That sounds
Mhm.
like a lot, but Magic's history, that's a very tiny amount. So let's say you
Mhm.
make a cube of 250 cards, all the colors, all the stuff. Then
Mhm.
you and your friends draft from that cube and play.
Mhm. Okay.
Right?
So instead of it being sealed before you start, it's
Yeah,
all you already know what's there.
you already know it's there,
Mhm.
but it's still fun because you could
Mhm.
like depending on how it goes, you might be playing completely random, like depending on his sense of humor. One day you might be playing like a squirrel deck. Yeah, I don't know if he has that kind of sense of humor, but there are cubes I've seen with just nothing but squirrels.
Uh-huh.
Or right, so I mean it depends, and like I said, it depends on what you want to do and how you want to do it. But no, like that's kind of like one of my hit. I'm going to try to do before I hit 1,000. Right. Um, like it's one of those things where you look at it, it's like authors are all kids on some level,
Yes.
all of
Mhm.
us. So to find that fun spot with every author is like fun, and if you can do it on a context like this,
Mhm.
you have something that people will remember.
Yep.
So what's your fun thing? We've talked video games a lot. I'm just wondering what else. What's
Oh,
your
what
other
else
thing?
do I do? Um, aside from that, I'm trying to think because there's writing. Slightly fun is that I do martial arts. I'm a third degree black belt in Taekwondo, and I used to teach it. I still train a little bit on my own, but nothing really official because I'm busy with everything.
No, I get it. I'm actually debating in about a couple months when I'm actually a little bit more on my feet, hit an MMA gym for a couple of years.
That's a good
I
idea.
know. Well, yeah. Well, I know I will be getting my ass kicked. I have not.
I have not. No.
Yeah. No time.
And
buddy.
and after what I hear about in the Sphere and what they did with the second game, I probably won't.
Now I'm usually my favorite kind of RPG games. Like I'm more of a JRPG guy. I want a full escape. Last of Us. Yeah. Sorry, bud. We just don't have time.
Yeah. But I'd say that we have very similar taste.
Yeah, me and you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. We're not debating that.
A lot of people agree that the first game was really good.
Yeah. No, we're not debating that. What it is, man, is what happens is you get to this point where you go, what do I like? And how much time do I have for the things I like? Right? And so I like JRPGs. Chris likes JRPGs. You know what we're going to be doing? JRPGs. Why? Because we like them.
Like I haven't even what was it? Final Fantasy VII Remake. I haven't even touched that. So
Nor have I.
That's another thing I have to get to.
Yeah. If I ever get a PS4, that's that. Like, actually, and that's fair. And dude, if you love that stuff, by all means, like, do it. Like, just do it, right? But for us, it's going to be Tales. It's going to be Tales games. Like that's what we're going to do. He'll do Nier Automata. I'll do Persona. And we'll meet in the middle at Tales and Final Fantasy. And we'll both be very happy in those worlds. Wait. One last one. Zelda, yay or nay?
I have not played any Zelda. I need to do Breath of the Wild at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. Old nostalgia. Ocarina of Time because of your N64 days. Good game. I'm actually drawing it for like a graphic novel. I'm doing a little homage to it, right? Using a Twitch stream, playing like Ocarina, having dialogue on the side like we have here. Like that's what I'm going to be doing.
Oh, is there a fix you can apply your voice and picture desynced? I don't know if I've desynced as well.
Voice and picture?
Oh, nope, you're back. We're back up. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Well, at least I haven't seen doppelgangers on. I'm crossing my fingers saying that. Yeah, that's what happened with Marissa's serial, folks. Was doppelgangers. But no, like there's some really there's just too many good things out there. So you gotta be picky and choosy of what you like. And like I said, we don't. Oh, he is. That's why he's here. He just launched the book.
We just went into a completely different direction. You were talking about steampunk. I write essentially steampunk epic fantasy. Like Lord of the Rings meets Star Wars or Stormlight Archive with airships.
And it's one of my favorite books.
We'll probably get into it later, but so this is book 2 that just came out.
Yes.
So this is Remnant here.
Yep.
And then the first book that Josh read and really enjoyed was Divinity Twilight Rebirth.
Yes. I actually reviewed it. You can actually read my review of the book, which is no, like I enjoyed it, and I am gonna get the book too eventually. The light is blinding me. Yes, it is.
Oh, there, yeah. If you lean back.
Yeah. Hold on a second. See if we can fix that slightly. There we go. But no, it's just like that's the thing. Like we went to steampunk. We talked video games for a little bit, and we're gonna talk. Did you make number 1, by the way? Did you climb to number 1?
Oh yeah, in Military Fantasy. So hit number 1 in Military Fantasy on Amazon, and then it was the number 1 new release in the same category. So it was a really good past 24 hours.
Does it feel surreal?
It does, because that happened at 3 a.m. I got a kick of adrenaline, and I was up for another 2 hours, even though I had to get up at 7. So I got like 2 or 3 hours of sleep. I had to watch like a really slow, boring video in order to put myself to sleep, like get rid of the adrenaline.
Yeah, because you'd crash it. So what do you crash, right? So you'd be like one of those like, no. So always for me, whenever I did big podcasts or won an award or did an accomplishment, when I went to my day job, that would bring me so down. Like, how do you
Yes.
top that high, right?
So my day job today was not very interesting. My day job, I'm a design engineer for a government contractor. And so part of the reason I'm really tired and had so much trouble with the release is that, and I'm not going to give major specifics because I can't, but on Tuesday night, I had to stay late at the hangar with the aircraft that the US government had brought to us. So getting to work on really cool stuff that's very steampunk in nature. And that's where part of my fascination with airships and stuff comes from. But anyway, working on the aircraft, and our scanning tool wouldn't calibrate properly. It took us 3 hours to calibrate it. And then once we calibrated it, the computer that was connected to the scanner crashed 3 times. And so we ended up spending, we were there from after, so started work at 7 in the morning, started this survey at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We had to get it done. And we were there till midnight. So from 7 a.m. to midnight was the workday.
And a lot of that was sitting around doing nothing.
Yes, or having computer issues or bugs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, yay.
Yep. Yay, I can't do any of my release stuff. Fortunately, I still had fortunately I'd gotten most of it done by Monday, but I'm still catching up on a lot of stuff. Like for example, if there's anybody here on this podcast that has come on my socials and said how great the books are, or have wished me luck or congratulations, I really appreciate you. I'm trying to get to all of the messages and all the fan mail and everything that I've gotten since the release. I'm in catch-up mode.
Yeah. No, yeah. I'm wondering here. I'm just wondering something. Did you get to the Canadian fix yet?
Oh, for the books. So
yeah.
I'm fixing that tonight. It's up on my other computer right here. So after we get off, I'm fixing it. So in the next 2 days, you should be able to get a paperback from Canada.
Yeah. So for those wondering, the reason why I didn't order his book was because I really couldn't. Right. Yeah. I tried to go in through him, but we both laughed a little. Mm-hmm. We both laughed a little bit at that. It's like, are you going to kill me with shipping? And he goes, yes.
Well,
I am.
It's not me. It's USPS.
Yeah.
It's that little demarcation where there's this American guard on this side and a Canadian guard on this side, and they can't just hand packages across without charging people an exorbitant amount.
At this point, especially, it almost feels like we went back to the 70s all over again. Now it's like, and we're like, why are we doing this? And I'm like, I don't know, but at this point, that's the thing. So we both laughed. It was a little bit of a despairing laugh on both ends, but it was what it was. So I'll be definitely picking this up probably next month. At least my birthday is coming up, and you actually saw my book list. You're like, hey, that's a good list.
Yes.
Yeah. Not just because you're on it either. Right. I allowed to put this. But you did it, man. Like you did something that's like you are now a #1 Amazon bestseller.
I know. I've got the orange tag. I still get a little tingly and like the hair stands on end. I was not expecting this because I did a whole bunch of newsletter swaps. I did a bunch of prep for it to go out, but it's a sequel. You don't expect to get orange tags on a sequel. And I didn't get one for book 1. I was like, when I do the box set, when I do the first 3 books in a box set, that'll be when I get an orange tag or something like that.
But your book was really good. Like I'm just saying, that was that was as good of any fantasy debut as I've ever read. So I mean, you did a wonderful job of it. Yeah.
Well, so again, this is me, the author, and you're an author too. You know that we're most critical of ourselves, right? I think that Remnant is like 5 times better than Rebirth.
Yep.
Yes.
And it doesn't always show. Like I did a sequel for my series, The Watcher, Stormdancer. I like that book better than I like The Watcher. But people didn't like the book as much as they liked The Watcher, right? And I'm not entirely sure why. And it's like, so I get it. Like the sequel thing is a real thing, but you did a very compelling story. You ended in a very interesting place. I'm actually very curious about one thing, and you won't answer it for me here because it'll spoil the book. So
we'll see if it's a Raffo.
Yeah. Oh no, it's definitely a Raffo. It's the last chapter in the book. See, one of my things is, okay, I'm gonna be very careful how I say this. A character from way back into the past is actually the villain of the story, which is typical of most fantasies. But the way that character came into the present is a bit of a mystery. And the way you ended it, the way you started it, the way you ended it, I was like, the question. Oh,
Petriglio did review it, and he'll
Yeah.
be reviewing book 2 when I ship it to him. I'm going to ship it to him in the next couple days.
Yep. No, it's a great book. So the beginning, and so I'm trying to be as not so spoilerific as possible. The very end and the very beginning gave me the impression that maybe that bad guy from the past wasn't the only thing that came from the past. And that's definitely a wrathful if I ask that question, right? So I don't even need to ask it to know that. But it's interesting. It was an interesting ending, and it was a compelling enough that's like, yeah, I can't wait for book 2. Then I went to your website when March 2022. I'm like, I think he was a little off there, but that's okay, right? You don't. Again, I think one of the again, I talk about this, like the big epic fantasies. They take a long time to put together. Did you? I'm sure you read Robert Jordan, right?
I have not. I've read 50 pages of The Wheel of Time. I mean, of The Eye of the World. Yes.
Okay.
So I've been meaning to. The problem is Jordan's prose is brilliant. He's amazing and poetic, but we're still in nothing's happened 50 pages in except for the prologue. The prologue was amazing.
No, the prologue's fantastic. So, but here's the thing, right? And he was okay. So,
it's a series. Yeah, continuing.
Yeah, it's continuing.
So you were talking about if you're an ebook reader, book 1 until the 21st is 99 cents on ebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll give you a link to that at the end when we actually do the official plugs or we'll do that. I say it like this. So Jordan came in the late 80s, early 90s, right, for his stuff. And that was when, so we went from the Tolkien era, right, which includes Terry Brooks, David Eddings, right? And then Jordan kind of took it to the next level, and he kind of set the table for people like George R.R. Martin.
He's the father of modern fantasy.
Yeah, big time. And Brandon Sanderson would not exist without him. In fact, Mistborn, especially Mistborn, would not exist without the Wheel of Time. But the thing is, right? The first 3 books are very Tolkien-esque, and then he makes it more adult. But he took the first 6 books, he was able to keep it on a yearly schedule, and then afterwards it would go to 2 years. Because they're big, complex books, and the deeper you get into a series, the more complex it gets.
Yes.
So I imagine like continuity for you is probably your love-hate relationship.
Yes. So I have notes on my phone, notes in a notebook. I have Excel files with a bunch of characters and stuff like that. There's a lot that's kicking around in my head. I was keeping all of like big series twists in my head up until maybe a year ago, and then I started writing them down because I was like, well, what if I get into a freak accident and I die? I want somebody to be able to find this. The moment. So Sanderson talks about moments that he saw at the beginning when he started writing books, and that he's been pushing towards them forever. The moment at the end of book 3 is what I've been pushing forward towards since the beginning.
I'm very curious. Like I said, like when you get there, like you got 6 books in this bad boy, is what you figure.
So the end of the first arc is the end of book 3.
Okay. Yeah.
And book 2 is by no means. I don't think it has middle book syndrome because it has book 1 starts with a huge battle. Book 2 ends with a huge battle.
Well,
yes.
I think the secret to that, and I realize this is, if you have a clear enough idea what goes on in a book, you can make it feel like a complete story in of itself. I'm of the mindset. I don't know how many comics you read. Like the very old school Silver Age books would tell, like each book would be a story, but they would also move along an A plot, a B plot, and a C plot. And eventually, as these issues went, those plots would come more and more into the forefront until boom, right? You get to that payoff whenever that was. As long as books 2, book 3, and book 4, like, this is a full story by itself. right? And it's a really tricky balance sometimes because you've got to move certain things forward at a certain pace. But if you can do that, they'll never feel soggy. They'll feel like
well, you stick pins in things. Like
yeah.
with book 2, for me, there's a lot more focus on character development and people's backstories, and then the interaction between the decks. That basically you have a team that has all but broken down by the end of book 1. We kind of have to forge that back together.
Yep, which makes sense because that's exactly where it should be, because you, again, without spoiling too much, I mean, they get their asses kicked a lot in book 1.
So
right?
my philosophy, so in Star Wars, you have A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and then you have The Return of the Jedi. So hopeful, barely survive, ends on a good note. Hopeful again is basically the way that I view it. But in my opinion, so like the Empire, you have the Stormtroopers. The Stormtroopers are terrible shots. They can't do anything against the heroes. That the heroes always escape. And so I feel like you can't have Stormtroopers in your book if you want there to be tension, if you want there to be stakes. That something has to happen to the heroes, which again, you've read book 1. But going off of that, though, I think that the Empire has to continue to be a threat. So book 1 is like Empire Strikes. And I think that I need them to keep being a threat is what I'll say. I don't want to go into too big of spoilers.
So, well, how about we put it like this? It's kind of like the Borg in Star Trek. When the Borg first show up, they are the biggest menace. Even though, okay, the first time they met, if it wasn't for Q, the Enterprise would not have escaped. They would have died. The second time, they barely won. And it took everything they had to be just one Q. And every time subsequently the Borg were introduced in Next Generation, they were always a menace, right? They never ceased being below a certain threshold. But when you got to the Voyager, they turned the Borg into run-of-the-mill supervillains, and you just don't want that. Look,
no.
there is a world where Bebop and Rocksteady work. You don't want to take your big Appalachian horror monster and turn them into Bebop and Rocksteady, right? That's not a journey. That's not a villain's journey you want to write, right? You gotta actually.
Well, this isn't even speaking about the villains themselves. It's more of the entities. A Darth Vader. Everybody was afraid of Darth Vader. Nobody was afraid of Stormtroopers. Nobody was. The Empire had tons of Star Destroyers. Like, you even look at the end of Return of the Jedi, and this is one of the weird things in my mind is how did we? They apparently wrote books, but I didn't really enjoy them. But there was the Legends canon. Legends canon was great. How we get Grand Admiral Thrawn, the decline of the Empire, that made sense. Their new canon, Disney's new canon, is very weird. It's some sort of BS plan where the Emperor left orders that if he died, that the entire Empire needed to be scrapped and rebuilt. That was apparently how we got to the First Order. So doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
But at the end of Return of the Jedi, they take down the Death Star. But there's still this giant fleet. They lost their Super Star Destroyer, but why didn't the Imperial fleet just turn around and slag the rebels? That's kind of the things I'm trying to avoid with the entities themselves, like the Sarkonian Empire in my world.
Well, it's like anything else. There's human beings at the top, and there's human beings at the bottom. Now, you lose the top, there's chaos for a little bit, but But a military is only as good as its chain of command. So if the chain of command is strong from top to bottom, yes, there'll be a moment's confusion right when the top guys are gone. But then the new top guys will just carry on like it's always been. And then when it's over, and then when that battle's over, then they reassess what they're going to do. But they're still going to go down swinging. They're not going to just, you killed our boss. Yeah, that kind of blows. We're still here.
Like, have you ever seen Robot Chicken?
Yes.
So Robot Chicken did a skit on post-Battle of Endor for Star Wars. And it's two Imperial officers on the bridge of another Star Destroyer talking. And the first officer is going, "I want all ships to converge on Endor. We're going to wipe the rebel fleet from the galaxy." Second officer goes, "I'm sorry, sir. We can't do that." "What do you mean we can't do that?" "Well, you see the rebels won." "What do you mean they won? They destroyed the first Death Star years ago, and the fighting continues. And it keeps going like that. And at the end, they go, "Oh, well, I guess it's over then. End of the Empire. What do you want to do now? Let's go get a couple of massages.
Now, if you do find a way to make that appealing, I'll pop. I'm not gonna lie. If you actually did that in your series, I would be like, okay, you made that work. That's awesome. It would completely ruin your series, but no, you don't. Yeah, like gravity has to be there the whole time. It has to be there the whole time. If there's no gravity, then there's like, you want them, like, I'm assuming the cadets that, I'm not spoiling anything, I'm assuming that some cadets may not make it out of the second book, but the ones that do survive, hopefully get stronger, become better fighters, become better people. Hopefully, right? And I say with the fingers crossed.
The Valen problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you kind of, so you want that, but at the same time, the enemy survives battles too. They get stronger as well. That's just how it goes, right? It's not knock all the anthills down. The surviving ants, actually, all of them get stronger, not just one side. All sides get stronger, right? Barring a really unfair advantage. But again, I'm not going to spoil book one too much, because that's part of, actually, that is the other thing I should ask. Not spoiling. This is the closest to a full spoiler I think I'm going to get.
Yep.
And actually, now I think that I do know the answer to that question. By the way, I have in my head, if something, I know the raffle answer to that. So I'm going to go to this question then. How do you counter that kind of escalation? Because the other thing you're dealing with in this conflict in particular is you have a war going on, and right this minute, one enemy has a supreme advantage, but that
advantage, it comes with a cost. But
oh, absolutely, but it has, for the moment, it has a supreme advantage. So then, if you're the losing side, quote unquote, what are you willing to do to catch up? And I think that is a much more interesting question. Maybe not one you can answer here, but that
I can't exactly answer. But the cadets still have some tools, not whether they know it or not.
That's fair.
Yes.
No, that's fair. No, it just seems to me like that's like you created a very interesting paradox there. Like you know, and it's going to be very interesting to see how you resolve it if you actually do, which is going to be
So you're talking about the power advantage. So between the two big empires, you had the Sarkonian Empire and the Raban Imperium. They were pretty much balanced before we introduced our extra little building block. We tossed it onto the scales and it messed everything up. We'll call it that.
Yeah.
Well, that extra weight that we tossed onto the scales, you know what they're like. That they're not necessarily interested in continuing to upset the scales. They have their own agenda. And so the question is whether or not that individual continues to act in the best interests of the side that they're currently working with.
Which also will get much more interesting as time goes on. That's part of the fantasy series. Like, I have to say, is one of the more, like, although it's kind of been done in the past, the way you introduced your big bad guy was really interesting. I have to say. So, so not spoiling anything, right? Trying my best anyway.
Yes.
So, so this one's your current favorite. So if I ask you when's book 3, are you going to punch me?
No, I'm not like that. I think book 3 is probably, so right now I'm actually working on audiobooks. So audiobooks for book 1 and book 2. And before I do the audiobook for book 1, I want to go back through and make sure everything's really tight and correct any mistakes. So that's my next little project. And then after that, I'm going to be starting work on book 3. I already know where book 3 ends, and I know the plot of it and what's happening on both sides of the conflict. And so plotting that shouldn't take too long. So I project that book 3 maybe next September. Just aim for yearly September releases.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
like I said, don't feel bad.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold you to that because I know,
Yeah.
again, I think that's the one thing about epic fantasy. It becomes more complex as you write it, not less. Because again, not just continuity, but just like where you're at in the story too, right? It's delicate. So
And so book 1 was 180K words. Book 2 was 250K words. I think that book 3 is going to be somewhere in between, but maybe closer to 180. Just what I think the story needs.
I am going to be very interested. So here's, I'm going to make this a little proposition, then we'll get to, I think, the pitch of everything you're doing right now. Would you, not when it's done, like not when you're ready to release it, but like maybe at some point next year, like we can like have this on recording, right? Probably 180,000 words, probably next year. You want to come back like 6-7 months from now and go, well, about that little plan, right?
Where am I?
Yeah. Would you like to do that?
Sure.
Yeah. We can talk video games some more then too.
Well, the thing is, so yeah, I was going to do this yesterday, but again, I've been swamped. But as soon as I get my on the hook for Chris McGrath, I'm trying to get him to do book 3's cover. He's the one that he did the first 2 book covers. But once I get him on the hook for coming on and doing that, and he'll do that within 3 months, then that's really where it's go time, because you've sunk in the money for the amazing art.
That's fair.
Yep,
that's totally fair.
And then I'll have Raffaele Lucchini. He'll be back. He's going to be doing more interior illustrations for book 3. And I'm actually looking at having, so this is, I think this is the first time I've talked about this on the air. I'm going to be trying to do a book 1 special edition and have him come and do illustrations for book 1 too.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, no, because your world definitely has that, like that vibe. You're very curious to see what you imagine or what he imagines or how you bring it to life. So
actually, have you seen any of the art, the book 2 art?
I haven't yet.
So first off, there's actually a new map that's coming with book 2.
Ooh.
So the center area was the original rectangle that you saw in book 1. So like a 75% of this is all new. Yep. And then so that was a guy called Kerr Scott that's out in New Zealand. But then this is the art of Raffaele Lucchini. So if you remember Ritter Marshall Titania from book 1, that is her.
Oh, wow.
And then over here is, oh, let's go this way for the camera. So this, I'm not going to go through all of them because of how hard it is to manipulate this, but this is a Draken. This is a mythical creature that the cadets come up in against very early within the first few chapters of book 1. I mean, book 2.
Yes.
Yeah, but lots of fun stuff. He did 10 of those illustrations. Amazing guy.
No, and he always adds something to a story. I love illustrations in my books as well. My Alice in Wonderland Greek mythology series has a bunch of illustrations in there of Alice playing croquet in the underworld. So it's kind of fun stuff. So
that does sound fun.
Yeah, it was. So Chris, I guess first things first, congratulations on your release. Congratulations on being #1. Congratulations on... Oh, hey, dude.
Honestly, it's all surreal, yes.
Yeah. A little... So this podcast won an award years ago. And I remember when I was nominated for the award, I had like this imposter syndrome. Like I had the surreality too. But I had this imposter syndrome of like, how did I do it? How did I get there? All that stuff, right? So I asked myself, honestly, how did I do it? How did I get there? And I realized that I did a lot of things right to get to this point. So have you.
Yes.
So when you have, I mean, yeah, enjoy this. You've earned, like, if there's one thing, if you can find a way to enjoy it. But the other thing too, like, be honest with yourself. Like, be honest with yourself. Like, look in the mirror. How did I get here? Because I wrote a great series. But I also did a lot of these things right. And be honest. What am I good at? What am I not so good at? So maybe I can avoid it. And how do I keep coming back to this space each and every time? Because if you did #1 once, buddy, you can do it again.
Yep.
Right.
And also there's a lot of marketing. Like, so you're running a business, I'm running a business, every indie author is running a business.
Absolutely.
And so it's learning that. And so, for example, between my day job and this, I haven't done a lot of writing in the past month or two. So because it's all been marketing and preparations, but again, that's legwork that you put in, the connections you make with other people that are in your industry, the different ad things you use, your website, your newsletter. There's a lot of stuff that goes in.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And the more, and doing shows like this, right?
Yes.
Even
Well,
if
no,
all you,
this is fun. This is a blast.
yeah. Well, yeah, no,
Mhm.
I appreciate that, but like I said, I also know this. I also know this too. I mean, you have a book to promote, or
Mhm.
maybe I'm not. I'm sure we'd hang out, but we wouldn't be doing this on the air. We wouldn't even talk Final
Uh-huh.
Fantasy on the air.
No, we'd be playing one of the Tales games co-op.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we. That sounds.
Uh,
If I do hit a convention in the States
yeah.
next year, you want to do it?
Yeah, actually, I'm assuming you have Steam, right? All gamers have Steam.
Yes.
So apparently, and I haven't looked into this yet, there is a way to play old Steam RPGs co-op through their system. I just need to figure out how to do it. But that would be cool to do.
That would no.
Yeah.
You know what? Man, we could do that. That'd be a cool little like bonus little stream
Yep.
somewhere down
Yep.
there.
A
Yeah,
stream.
all right.
Mhm.
Yeah. How about this? We'll figure this out somewhere in the next 6 months. You come back. We'll pick a Tails game.
Yep.
And we'll talk about our best laid plans and where we're
Okay.
at. Right. Because I have like, how do you make God laugh? You tell him your plans. That's how.
Yes.
Right. And that's how you make God laugh. And
Mhm.
it's true. Congratulations. So
Thank you.
I guess so. You gotta get me some website material so I can put up here for people to go look at, find, and
Okay.
stuff like that. So you want to do, obviously, book 2's your latest release, but you also got some specials ongoing for the current series. So how do you want?
Yes.
What order do you want to do this in?
So let's just go through and talk the series. So
Yeah.
Book 1, which you've already read, Book 1, Divinity Twilight Rebirth. It looks like this. Great red cover. This is steampunk epic fantasy, like a cross between Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. Follows a group of cadets that are really out of their depth, and they have to deal with a threat from the past that has come back, reared its ugly head, and threatens to take over the whole world. So your classic epic fantasy, but with a bunch of little twists, and Josh can tell you more about that. This is currently 99 cents on ebook. If you want signed copies, you can get them from my website, ChristopherRussellAuthor.com. You'll also be able to find it through all my socials. You'll be able to find those on the website. But again, this will be 99 cents through the 21st on ebook. So that's your Amazon, your Barnes & Noble, all your different ebook links. Second book that just came out, Divinity Twilight Remnant, continues the adventures of the underdog cadets that you found in book 1. This one, I'm currently getting up the paperback links on Amazon, much to Josh's chagrin. But so the ebook is out right now, and that's actually, I'm trying something new. You'll be able to get that on Kindle Unlimited as well if you're a KU reader. And eventually I'm going to bring book 1 back into KU as well and see how that works. Just go back and forth with those 90-day spurts. But I think this is the best book that I've ever written. I think it's like 5 times better than Rebirth, which was already an award-winning book. It won the 2020 Ozma Award for Best Epic Fantasy. But it's also a chunky boy here. So it's your good epic fantasy like Brandon Sanderson.
Absolutely. Did I get, hold on, Chris?
Yes.
Did I get your website right?
Yes, you did.
Right?
Yes.
Train motherfucking protectional right here.
Yes.
So,
and then, of course, ebooks, best place to go is Amazon or any other ebook links.
Yeah, so definitely go. So if you want to get the ebook deals, go to Amazon right now. Mm-hmm. This was my 8th year. Like my officially turned 8 and started into year 9 on my podcast.
Congratulations to you. Yeah.
Yeah. So 857 episodes. It would have been 858, but I had technical issues with Marissa Mayer. So earlier today, but she's coming back in October. So that'll be sweet. Dude, we definitely have similar interests. Definitely
yes.
do. So definitely have to come back and do this again at some point. And for everybody watching, if you want to support me, I do advertise the service. I make audio, video, words, and pictures for your projects and yourselves. You can definitely take a look on the website right here. And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. Tomorrow, I have Alston Christopher, comic book creator. And that's a good way to get into year 9. I want to thank Chris for coming on the show. Chris is awesome. Like I said, his books are amazing. I was like Rebirth is a fantastic, Divinity Twilight Rebirth is a fantastic read. Definitely take a look at it. And for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys later.